The Titanic and lifeboats. Did it have enough? In 1912, when the Titanic set to sea, it carried 2,200 passengers, and there were 20 lifeboats on board the ship. Most of these were about half or less full when they jettisoned from the Titanic as it sank, and it was even reported by a few survivors that some of these lifeboats were empty. Happened. There has been a lot of speculation about this, and I'm going to skip over all of the guesswork, and I'm only going to keep to the facts, because that's how I roll. The original design of the Titanic called for there to be 64 lifeboats. That seems very fair and reasonable, and the owner said no. Cut that number in half. And then he came back and said, cut it in half again. Why would he do such a crazy thing, you may ask? Well, primarily because he didn't want big old clunky lifeboats hogging up prime ocean view real estate. And also he did it because he could. But he did it not in a elitist, capitalist, I'm better than you sort of way, although it may seem like that to our modern point of view. See, in 1912, the Titanic did have, hear me, it did have the legal number of lifeboats on board. In fact, it had 4 more than was legally required. Safety regulations in that day said it was good to go. Most ships at the time were about 10 tons, and the Titanic, earning its name, was 4 times that. It was 40 tons. And the officials who oversaw such things didn't feel the need to make a very special rule just for the Titanic and its 2 sister ships, the Britannic and the Olympic. So they said, besides, sailing was so much safer now than it's ever been in the past, everything will be fine. Regulators were not the least bit convinced about any sort of what ifs. They just figured it would be fine. And in fact, one designer of the Titanic said that it was practically unsinkable. Nobody in 1912 thought the Titanic or its 2 sister ships were unsinkable. They just felt very confident about it because of the automatic locking door system and how water was supposed to be trapped on certain decks if something should happen. I don't want to get into the mechanics of it because that's not my jam, but it was felt that even if something did happen, it would all be mostly fine. And their belief for this was based on an event that happened in 1909, just 3 years prior. There was a ship called the Republic, and it began to sink. And only some of its passengers decided to get into the lifeboats, and when they did, they rolled off into the shipping lanes, and they flagged down help, and when rescue ships went back to the Republic, it was still afloat, and it was 24 hours later, and everybody on board was able to be saved. A good time was had by all, and there was much rejoicing. So the logic was the Titanic could, in theory, stay afloat 4 times longer, even if it were to sort of sink. So when it did sink, claiming the lives of 1,517, or 1,503 lives, and the discrepancy is because the British and the U.S. investigating committees could not decide on the actual number of people who perished. It was to no one's great surprise that there was a complete and total overhaul of the safety regulations of the day. So, I hope this settles the question once and for all. Did the Titanic have enough lifeboats? Legally, yes. It had 4 more than it needed. Did it really have enough lifeboats? No, not by a lot. So, if you thought this was interesting and you learned something new, please put it in the comment box below. The algorithm loves it, and then like and subscribe because I love that. Have a great one.